After you've learned how to connect the basic strokes to form letters, the next step is understanding how to connect letters to form words. This is applicable for brush lettering and for using a pointed pen in the Copperplate style. So I'm going to be using this pen, which is a Pentel Sign brush pen. And this is just a small tip brush pen, so it kind of looks like a pointed pen when you write with it, but it's a flexible tip. So to understand how to connect letters, first we have to look at all the possibilities of how a letter can connect to another letter. And you'll notice in a word that the way the letters connect is by the exit stroke of the first letter and the entrance stroke of the second letter. So the exit of this E becomes the entrance of this R, the exit of this C becomes the entrance of this T. So there are 4 different ways that a letter can exit, and those 4 ways are the entrance stroke shape, which is also called an exit stroke, an underturn, this shape is sometimes referred to as a comma dot. I like to call it a mini underturn just because it's the same shape as the underturn, just a little bit smaller, and it does not extend the entire X height. This line is the base line, and this line is the header line. And then the final way that a letter can end is with a compound curve. Now there are 3 basic ways that a letter can entrance with a couple variations. So the most basic way is just a normal entrance stroke, and then the 2 variations for the entrance stroke are a partial entrance stroke. So this is when you're going to a letter that has an oval shape like the O or even the E, so that does not go all the way up to the header line. And then we also have an entrance stroke that goes above the header line, and that is for letters like R or the letter S. Then there are 2 more ways a letter can start, and that is the overturn and the compound curve. There are 8 letters that end with an exit stroke. There are 10 letters that end with the underturn, 5 that end with the comma dot or mini underturn, and 6 that end with a compound curve. Now, there are 26 letters in the alphabet, and this adds up to 29. And that is because I'm going to show you some variations on letters that you can write a couple different ways. Okay, for the entrance stroke, the basic entrance stroke, there are 11 letters that start like this. The partial entrance stroke has 7 letters. This extended entrance stroke that goes above the header line, there are 3 letters. Overturn also has 3 letters. A compound curve also has 3 letters. And again, that does not add up to 26, but I'm going to show you variations. So the first exit stroke is just the basic exit stroke. And again, there are 8 letters that end with the exit stroke. So I'm just going to draw a basic version of each of those letters. F, that just ends with a basic exit stroke. G, J, this variation of the P, and I'm going to show you another variation of the P. So then we also have Q, S, Y, and Z. Okay, our next exit is the underturn. All right, and there are 10 letters that end with an underturn. A. Now the letter D, this isn't exactly an underturn shape because it starts up higher, but it's the same shape at the end of it. I, L, so same with this L, this isn't exactly an underturn because we're starting with this ascending stem loop, but the basic shape ends the same way as the underturn. Okay, now we're gonna do R. So again, this isn't exactly an underturn, but it's the same basic shape. T. U. Okay, then I'm also going to include the letters C and E. So these are really, you start off as an oval shape, but then you end from about here on is the same as underturn. And then same with the E. And then lastly, this version of the X, which is an upside down C shape and then a right side up C shape. So these 3 letters are being grouped with the underturn. Okay, then we have the third exit stroke is the comma dot or mini underturn, which starts at the header line and does not go all the way down to the baseline. So the first letter is the letter B. The O, for the O, I'm not going to start all the way at the header line. I start a little bit lower, but it's the same basic shape. So it's an even smaller underturn shape. V. W. And then lastly, I'm going to show you a variation of the letter R that I like to write. Now this final stroke is the same basic shape as this mini underturn, but it starts above the header line. You could also do it starting at the header line. Okay, so those are the letters that exit with that shape. Then lastly, we can exit with the compound curve. Okay, so the first letter that exits with a compound curve is H. We also have the letters M and N, which are very similar to each other. Those both end with the compound curve shape. This variation of the letter P, so we had one P up here and I'm going to add this P. Okay, and then these last two are not exactly underturns, but it's the same basic shape. So the letter K, I like to think of this last stroke as the end of a compound curve. I think I just said underturn, I meant to say compound curve. And then lastly, sometimes the letter X can be written like a compound curve shape with a crossbar. So that's another variation on the letter X. So these are all the ways to make, these are all the letters grouped by their exit stroke. Okay, next I'm going to show all the letters with their entrance strokes. So the first one is just the basic entrance stroke. And that goes from the baseline all the way up to the header line. So B, F, H, I, J, K, and L. I'm writing these a little bit quicker than I normally would, just so we can get through all of them. And then we also have the letter P. Either variation of the P starts with a basic entrance stroke. So I'm just going to draw one of them. The letter T. And the last two are U and W. Okay, then I'm gonna show you the next one, which is basically the same. It's just the entrance stroke, but we don't go all the way up to the header line. So those are letters that begin with an oval or an oval shape. So the A, I'm not going all the way up to this header line. Stop about here and connect it to the oval shape. So the letter C is not a complete oval, but it still has that same oval shape. Same with E. D is basically the same as A, except this underturn starts higher. G, O, and lastly Q. The next entrance stroke is the the entrance stroke going above the header line. And there are three letters that have that shape. So this letter R, this version of the letter R, the letter S, and then this version of the letter Z goes above the header line. Okay, so we have two more entrance strokes, the overturn and the compound curve. So let's look at the overturn. There are three letters that start with the overturn, and those are M, N, and this version of the letter Z. And lastly, we have the compound curve. So those are the letters V, Y, and the letter X that I showed before. So the entire letter is a compound curve, which that is why it's categorized as ending with a compound curve and starting with a compound curve. And I just realized that I forgot to draw basic shape right here. So I'll just move this over. Okay. So here, just as a review, we have 4 exit strokes. Those are all the letters that have a entrance stroke as their exit stroke, underturn, the mini underturn, and the compound curve. And 5 options for the entrance, where numbers 1, 2, and 3 are basically the same. We have the entrance stroke, the partial entrance stroke, and then the extended entrance stroke. And then lastly we have the overturn and the compound curve. So these two can kind of be grouped together because they both start with this up and over motion. And then for the exit strokes, we can think of these kind of all being grouped together because they end with this U motion. Okay, so now that we have all of the letters categorized by their exit stroke and their entrance stroke, we are going to look at how to connect each exit to each entrance.